Okay guys, so y'all really seem to like my Dracula vs. Carmilla video, so since it's still the Halloween season, let's talk again about Dracula. I want to analyze him. Who is this vampire? We all know the name, and all of you are familiar with him to some extent, but what created him? Why does he stand out? Why does every single interpretation of him that I've seen at least seem to get him all wrong? Let's talk about him. This is the beginning of a new series of videos that I'll be doing sparsely, probably throughout the month and onward, called Monsters Unmasked. When Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, it wasn't a critical success, and only saw real pop cultural success after the movie Nosferatu was released. Stoker's widow accused the movie of plagiarizing her husband's work, and thus the book became quite popular as it hit the media scene. The story opens with Jonathan Harker going to Transylvania to meet Count Dracula to discuss him purchasing property in London, but while there, he learns that Dracula is not a normal man. He is cold, calculating, and unfeeling, and not to mention cruel. He is a danger to everyone and everything around him, and eventually sneaks his way onto a boat for London. Upon arriving, it takes the book no time to start playing with the setup. The beauty of the book's horror is that it doesn't show Dracula that much. It simply gives tidbits of information through the journals, letters, newspaper articles, police reports, and it all tells us what's happening and gives us insights to how Dracula is working. We feel his presence. We know he's in the shadows and at work, but the characters are often oblivious to him and what he's doing. This kind of horror is unique for two reasons. One, it detracts from the normal side of horror we're used to, where a monster is always present and it's the frightening nature of the monster that scares us. And second, this is one of the first times the monster follows the hero's home. In most stories at this time, a character finds himself swept up in the world of the monster, or they're trapped in a haunted house or whatever, and they find a way to escape. But when, in this case, he wins, but in Dracula, the monster arrives in the world we feel safest. There is no escape. He shows up in London with the people, and he doesn't feel safe. The beast is among the people of London. There was no getting away from him. But what is Dracula exactly? Well, simply put in a word, he's evil. I mean, this is what so many get wrong about Dracula and readaptations in movies, and you'd think it'd be simple, but it's not. Dracula is literally the personification of evil. He was meant to be an analog for the antichrist. Hell, his name means son of the devil. Some believe that Bram Stoker based him off of Vlad Dracul, or Vlad the Impaler, a Wallachian prince who was said to have impaled his victims on pikes around his castle and drank the blood of his enemies. There's likely some truth to this, but it's unconfirmed. What is true is that Dracula was meant to be an uncompromising and morally vile entity. This is where the adaptations tend to miss the mark. They make him feeling, tender, sympathetic. For some reason, the idea of the vampire has shifted from a monster to a kicked puppy. Vampires today don't feed on humanity like cattle. They're tortured souls who feel guilty about what they are. They crave love, belonging, and companionship. Even Gary Oldman's Dracula claimed to love Mina Harker, which is simply not the case in the book.
Please, I don't care. Make me.
You're the cursed as I am to walk in the shadow of death for all eternity. I love you too much to continue.
In chapter 19, when Dracula forces Mina to drink his blood, it wasn't out of love, but to punish her and her male comrades for trying to oppose him. He would turn her into a vampire like him and make her work against them. At the beginning of the book, Dracula claims that he was capable of love to his 3 vampire brides, as they remember from the past. But what is love to such a creature? To a creature who captures children in the night to feed his wives and keep them locked up normally? What is love to one who stalks innocent women, abuses the mentally deranged, and holds an innocent man captive in his castle to be prey for his wives? How can such a thing know love? My theory is that it is a perverse love, and this goes into another theme of Dracula. I said earlier that he was like an antichrist figure, but that's more direct than you may realize. Let's compare him to Jesus. Jesus offers eternal life through forgiveness, and this eternal life is in heaven. Dracula offers eternal life through unlife, and it's not a choice. Jesus offers you the choice to follow him. Dracula will do it without your consent. He will make you a demon, a monster. He will pervert the mortal shell that is your body and twist it into a force of evil and devastation, feeding on the ones you love most.
Come to me, Arthur. Leave these others. hungry for you, my darling. Kiss me and caress me, my darling husband, please.
As Jesus paid for sin with his blood, so our blood might be spared, Dracula consumes blood of the living to nourish himself. He is repelled by crosses and sunlight. In every conceivable way, Dracula is the antithesis of good. But I know what you're thinking. Come on, pure evil, we see that all the time. What makes Dracula special? Well, lots of things, but the one word that I always fall back on when it comes to Dracula is relatability. There's just none like Dracula. Name a pure evil character in pop culture. Let's say the Emperor from Star Wars. At the end of it all, you can negotiate his evil down to greed and power hunger. He wants to rule the galaxy and he'll sacrifice what he needs to in order to get there. It's relatable. We know what it's like to want something and work for it. Hades and Scar? Jealousy. They're jealous they don't have the position or status they should and will take down their brothers to get it. Jafar, Ursula, Gaston, Joker, Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Darkseid, Thanos, even Apollyon and the Major, who are two villains I've talked about, are somewhat understandable in their motives or intentions. Either they feel their motives are actually good and no one understands them, they seek power, they seek revenge, they seek justice, they seek balance. Even monsters like John Carpenter's The Thing could be argued is motivated by a need for self-preservation or assimilation. But what is Dracula? What the hell is he? What motivates him? What are his intentions? For some greater purpose? Revenge? Jealousy? Hunger for power? Not really none of these things. He comes to London for one reason. New feeding grounds. He has come to sow his evil among the people of London. He does what he does for the sake of evil. You can't argue it's for self-preservation. He's been shown he can survive off the villagers where he lives. He simply seeks a new place to hunt. You can't say it's for power. He's giving up his castle and status as count to come to London. He couldn't care less about status. This is what makes Dracula fantastic to me as a monster. Where Frankenstein sought an answer to what he was and his identity, and the werewolf was torn between bestial nature and the human spirit, Dracula's just pure and twisted evil, a dark and satanic need to feed on the living and the good to fuel himself. Notice he rarely targets bad people, dirty people, or evil people. He often targets women, children, virgins, innocents. He often ignores the wicked or cruel. In most adaptations, Dracula is done either as the pretty boy who just wants love, or is trying to re-find his Mina Harker, or he's played up as an all-powerful, unkillable monster with unbelievable powers who's supposed to be the ultimate antagonist for the hero. Both are quite inaccurate. There is a middle ground there that needs to be addressed, but you can't go to one extreme over the other. Yes, Dracula was suave and sophisticated. He could charm and mesmerize, and he was skilled at playing the role of an aristocrat, as he did for Jonathan in the beginning of the book. But he has his limits, and his charms are not without strains. He struggles to hold up the facade for long, and when his true nature's exposed, he is plain to see as the monster he really is. Jonathan recognizes it very quickly. He also has unbelievable power. But most movies overplay his powers, like making him able to destroy crosses, be immune to silver, having the sun not really bother him that much. And this takes away some of what makes him unique. Ironically, by making him a unique vampire who can withstand weaknesses of other vampires, you make him mundane, more generic. He's no longer a symbol of evil, just an outlier from the norm. Here's a thought. What if in exchange for his amazing powers over other vampires like in Blade Trinity, you came up with more weaknesses for him? Wouldn't that be more intriguing? What if instead of being the only vampire who's immune to the sun out of all the vampires, what if he was more susceptible to it? What if he literally had to sleep during the daylight hours, not just hide away in the darkness? What if he literally was confined to sleeping? Man, I think that'd make him not only more evil, but make him more engaging. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some interpretations of Dracula that I do enjoy. I do think, despite some inaccuracies with the books, Gary Oldman's Dracula was very good. Alucard from Helsing is one of my favorite Draculas by far. The Batman vs. Dracula movie had a very good interpretation of him that I found hauntingly similar to what I read in the book, at least in attitude and motivation. I even like Dracula in Hotel Transylvania. He's nothing at all like the book, but he's a guilty pleasure, you know? But others, Dracula Dead and Loving It, Dracula 2000, Dracula Untold, Blade Trinity, Van Helsing, though granted that last one in which he's hilarious, are all very poor versions of the legend. Why? Well, various reasons. Some are inaccurate to the book, some are lazy, some are overpowered cheeseheads, and on and on and on. I admit I'm not entirely immune to this criticism. In my own book that I'm writing, The Revenant, New York is plagued by a vampire vigilante killing and draining his victim's blood, claiming to be Dracula. He's targeting criminals and mob bosses specifically, and the police are trying to hunt him down, not knowing that Dracula is actually after something different than drug dealers and crime lords. Dracula is obviously no vigilante in the book. He's not a seeker of justice or anything like that, so I know it's inaccurate. But what matters most to me is if the interpretation is engaging, something to be admired or pondered, or adds extra thought. Here's a good example. Alucard from Helsing. In this version, Dracula was not killed by Van Helsing, but instead sworn to serve Helsing as his family's warrior and protector forever. Renaming himself Alucard, which is Dracula spelled backwards, he fights in service to Abraham's descendant, Integra Helsing, who runs a vampire-killing organization called Helsing. In this version, Alucard is still sadistic, cruel, evil, and cold. He takes pleasure in torture and death. He kills without question and murders anyone, including innocents, as if it were nothing. But there is a part to him that comes out from time to time that intrigues me. A fragility.
Prepare! Anderson, stop it! Do you know what that thing will do to you? You'll become one of God's monsters. Maintain your humanity. Don't succumb to power. Either side, it amounts to the same deal. Whether in the name of the divine or demonic, you're still a monster in the end. Do you intend to use that scrap of miracle to become nothing but a scrap of miracle yourself? This duel between us, would you really push it this far? Into the realms that lie beyond mortal life? A monster such as myself. A creature of such weakness that I could not bear the weight of a human life. If I am to be defeated, it must be by a human. Don't do it, human. Don't become a monster. A monster like me.
While this isn't necessarily accurate to the book, it's at least thought-provoking. Could the maniacal laughter be masking a truly tortured person? Could the destructive demon regret his choices? This is different from a character like Edward Cullen, as Edward simply whines about being a vampire and wishes he wasn't, while Alucard embraces what he is, but yearns for the day when someone can finally kill him and end his own personal suffering. He acknowledges the reality of being a vampire, and he accepts it, even enjoys it, but he knows it was his own weaknesses and sin that brought him to this, and in his own way, he seeks a worthy man who can slay him and right the wrongs and cleanse the sin that caused him. It's intellectually profound for an anime about vampires and gore and no small amount of swearing, so I've got to at least give it props for that, even if it's not super accurate. But now let's try a bad one, like Dracula Untold. In this, Dracula is Vlad Dracul, and he's at war with the Ottomans, and he makes a deal with an ancient vampire, which will make Dracula a vampire too, so he can use his power to defeat the Ottomans and save his home. But if he drinks blood at any point, he'll be permanently a vampire, and he'll never turn back. The story's about him resisting his urge to feed, cherishing his family, trying to do the right thing and deny the monster he's becoming. He uses his powers to devastate the Ottomans, but in the end loses it all. He drinks blood and blah, blah, blah. Boring. See, this is what doesn't work here. While Alucard was thought-provoking, this is just a tragic superhero. He's a normal man wanting to do the right thing and make a deal with the darkest entities to do the right thing. But it backfires on him, and now he needs to right his wrongs. Oh, hi, Ghost Rider, when did you get here? Yeah, the tragic monster with issues is done too, but I'd argue few do it quite like Alucard does. And plus, I'm a sucker, get it, for that kind of drama. It's at least not so overdone, I get sick of it, you know? So in comparison, yes, both are inaccurate to the actual book, but at least Alucard was engaging to some extent. It was thought-provoking. When I watched Dracula Untold, all I did was say, why isn't he a Marvel superhero? They kind of set him up as one, you know? That's the reason I didn't like that. What can I say about Dracula that I haven't already? When it comes to creatures of the night, Vampires have always been my favorite, and Dracula, as the king of vampires, has always stood out among them all. In the past, it was said the great trinity of monsters was Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman. Each one comes with a theme, of course. Frankenstein represents the dangers of what mankind could be capable of and the responsibilities of human progress. Wolfman represents the savage nature in us all and the self-destructive things we can do through them. But Dracula? Dracula represents pure and unquestionable evil. A reality that many in today's day and age often choose to deny exists, but certainly can and does. And with that in mind, isn't it so ironic that Dracula is the only one of these three monsters that's rarely interpreted right in media, while also not having a large presence in their own source material? It's almost like he's always in the shadows, always just out of sight and out of mind, letting the world deny he exists just long enough for him to start eating away, much like how evil works. This is why I love Dracula. He's thought-provoking. He's frightening. He's a testament to what evil can be and what it is at times. I think Dracula is more powerful today than he was when he was first written. Today, we understand the powers and weaknesses of vampires even better, so when we read the book, we notice them much more clearly. Every pop culture vampire, at some point, has drawn a little from Dracula. We can't deny it. That's why, in my opinion, Dracula is not only the best vampire, he's the king of vampires. Thank you guys for watching. I promise I'm going to be working on the next For Honor video or Rainbow Six video soon. Take care, guys.
That's quite a thing for you to say. Just what I'd expect from a king of vampires. Or a count.